I realized just to get through a very brief recitation of Phyllis Schlafly's accomplishments would take me 30 minutes, and I know you want to get to the bar, so I'm going to cut it down and read it like I'm reading the Senate health care bill. But first, I'd like to tell you about one of my favorite stories about Phyllis Schlafly. The one time she was wrong. She was debating Dr. Joyce Brothers on the Equal Rights Amendment on the Merv Griffin show and said that Harvard Law School had been admitting women since at least 1945. Dr. Joyce Brothers heatedly disagreed with her. And she said, no, I know they were admitting women at least since then because I almost went to Harvard Law School. It turned out Phyllis Schlafly was wrong. Harvard Law School was not admitting women in 1945, but her Harvard professors thought she was so brilliant, they wanted to make an exception for her, offered her admission to the Harvard Law School, and that's not even the best part of the story. Phyllis Schlafly said, no thanks. That Phyllis Schlafly is the mortal enemy of a movement, the feminist, or wealthy white women from Scarsdale who find housework demeaning, tells you that a movement that claims to promote women and take Phyllis Schlafly as their mortal enemy tells you everything you need to know about the feminist movement, and that much of what I'm about to tell you you probably haven't heard before tells you everything you need to know about the mainstream media. To get to some of this amazing woman's accomplishments, Schlafly has written or co-written more than 20 books, most of them on things like military policy, constitutional law, legal issues. To put that in perspective, it would take 220 AP reporters to fact-check those books. Her first book, A Choice Not an Echo, is credited with jump-starting the movement that got Goldwater the nomination, moving the Republican Party to be a conservative party and not a Rockefeller Republican party, and that eventually led to Ronald Reagan's presidency. And yes, it's appropriate to clap for that. Her military work was a major factor in Reagan's high frontier technology. Since 1967, Schlafly has published the Phyllis Schlafly Report, and since 1972, she's run the organization she founded, the Eagle Forum. To give you an idea of how long ago that was, when she founded the Eagle Forum, eagles were protected by the Endangered Species Act rather than snail darters. And trust me, as a former Senate staffer, when the Eagle Forum takes a position, it matters. Schlafly still writes a syndicated column, which appears in more than 100 newspapers, or as many of those that are still in business, as well as the internet. She produces radio commentaries every Saturday on her Eagle Forum Live, broadcast on dozens of radio stations and across the internet. She was about to come interview me for my book Guilty this year in January on C-SPAN, but she was giving a speech at Berkeley and fell and broke her hip. And I don't even snowboard. Over the years, Schlafly has testified before more than 50 congressional and state legislative committees. For the first time, Phyllis Schlafly testified before Senator Robert Byrd. He was still wearing his Klan outfit. She's been a delegate at every Republican National Convention since 1956. The Ladies' Home Journal named Schlafly one of the 100 most important women of the 20th century, which just shows you media bias. She is one of the most important 4 or 5 people, men or women, of the 20th century. She was appointed by President Reagan to serve on the Commission on the Bicentennial of the U.S. Constitution from 1985 to 1981. For you kids out there, the Constitution is a document that established the legal framework for our government up until about January of this year. I'd like to say I've modeled myself after Phyllis Schlafly, but I don't have the energy. Schlafly also served as National Defense Chairman of the Daughters of American Revolution, which is how I first heard about her. My mother was a big fan in the DAR. But the fact that my mother adored Phyllis Schlafly didn't necessarily mean that much, because Mother's rule of thumb was that anyone who agreed with her politically was fabulous. which isn't a bad rule of thumb, but I'd always have to be telling Mother, yes, I know we want small government and cut taxes, but did this idiot columnist, who will not be named, there are so many of them, did he say anything you didn't already know, or in a way you wouldn't have already put it? No, Anne, but he wants to cut taxes. Anyway, one time I was citing Phyllis Schlafly to my college mentor, Professor Rabkin, Jeremy Rabkin at Cornell, who was my idol because he is vicious and sarcastic. And Rabkin said ruefully, "You and I will never have the talent in Phyllis Schlafly's little toe." So I thought, Mother was right on this one. Schlafly's most famous battle was over the Equal Rights Amendment, which I almost hesitate to mention because until the feminists sprung this monstrosity on the world, Schlafly had been writing influential books about military policy, ICBMs, defense treaties. Meanwhile, the feminists were engaging in cliffhanger debates about whether it's appropriate for a feminist to wear lipstick. But Schlafly's defeat of the ERA is important, not only because it is justly famous, but also because it was a titanic victory. Almost no one remembers this now, but when Schlafly took on the ERA, no reasonable person would have imagined that it could have been defeated. In 1971, the House passed the Equal Rights Amendment by 354 to 23. The Senate passed it by a vote of 84 to 8. 30 states approved it in the first year it was sent out for ratification, leaving 6 more years for only 8 more states to ratify it. Meanwhile, the ERA was also supported by the political platforms of both political parties, the presidents and their wives of both political parties, a slew of Hollywood celebrities, which always has so much effect, especially on this crowd. The only person on the other side was Phyllis Schlafly, but as George Gilder has said, that was enough. Schlafly was composed, brilliant, and relentless, had, of course, pies thrown in her face, and David, haven't we all? Among her campaign initiatives against the ERA, Schlafly sent quiches to all the U.S. senators who voted for the ERA with a friendly note saying, "Real men don't draft women." A subscriber to the Phyllis Schlafly report wrote to her in 1972, "We beat ERA in Oklahoma today, and all we had was your report. I just went to the Capitol and passed it around, and we beat it." Finally, while doing all this, Schlafly raised 6 amazingly accomplished children. She homeschooled them. They learned to read before they were sent to school, and then, of course, had to be advanced several grades. And they're all stunningly accomplished. I think there's a doctor, a lawyer, a math professor, John, who's here with her today. And this led to her also now justly famous phonics program, which is so good at teaching kids to read, even liberals use it. I'll conclude by listing the honor of which she is most proud, at least until tonight, with the Annie Taylor Award. And that is, in 1992, Phyllis Schlafly was named Illinois Mother of the Year. But tonight she wins the big award. Phyllis Schlafly, our honorary winner of the Annie Taylor Award.